most of them don't work out as vigorously as some of the gym rats, you could say. So most of them who don't have that hectic a workout schedule, can they use Andropique as well?
So let's talk about people who don't work out at all.
Yeah.
Whether they need Andropique.
Right.
That will straight away answer the question whether people who infrequently work out,
right,
don't work out that hard or whatever that may be.
Right.
Finally, whether they work out hard or not is also a perception. There's no way of actually gauging.
Right.
Or there's no way of telling people that there's a cutoff point of an intensity beyond which Andropique is going to become essential.
Right.
Or if you're not training at that intensity, it's not. First of all, Andropique is a testosterone booster. And testosterone is a hormone.
Right. And
what we're trying to do is we're trying to fill up the gap. Now for reasons not very clear, but obviously lifestyle related, a lot of males find themselves deficient in testosterone.
Right.
Even from a physiological standpoint, medical sciences have given such a huge range of, the range of normalcy is extremely wide. So if you're talking about like nanograms per deciliter, you're talking about
300 to 900.
300 to 1000.
Yes.
That's the range.
Right.
So, I mean, a person with at the rock bottom 300 of testosterone is not going to represent himself like a person who's at the top of the range, which is 1000.
Right.
Now, obviously, when it comes to sex hormones like testosterone, being bang in the center is not something which is ideal. Actually, what is ideal is being at the top
end. Level. Right.
And again, without pointing a finger at any one particular factor, the wrong kind of nutrition and obviously is one of the reasons why we find so many males nowhere close to 1000. In fact, you can run through multiple number of testosterone reports. You will not find a single person around 1000.
Right.
And then there comes another issue of the real bioavailable testosterone that actually does the magic in the body, and that's the free testosterone. Now, testosterone in the body is represented as body will manufacture an X amount of testosterone.
Right.
The body knows it doesn't require all the testosterone it manufactures, and then it has its own checks and balances. One of them being sex hormone binding globulin. So, sex hormone binding globulin, it's a protein that is supposed to bind sex hormones and deactivate them.
Right.
Obviously, the body has this naturally for a purpose that whatever is necessary is what we are keeping as free testosterone. Now, there's another element called as albumin.
Right.
So, even albumin as a protein binds to testosterone, but that's not a societal bond. That's not binding and inactivating it forever.
Right.
In fact, bound to albumin testosterone can be made available whenever the requirement of the body increases with testosterone. And then there is the complete free pool of testosterone that's not bound to any protein. And that's the testosterone that has all the effects that a sex hormone, androgenic sex hormone should be having for a male.
Right.
Whether it's sexual function, whether it's the secondary sexual characteristics of a male,
right,
or whether it's the anabolic effects of increased protein synthesis and reduced catabolism. So all of these happen with the 2%. That means if somebody is at about say 1000 of total testosterone, we're talking about 2% of 1000 to be the
ideal, right?
Now, obviously, there are tests that you can do, pathology tests that you can do, and you would always advise a person to take total testosterone and free testosterone, so that you at least understand where the problem lies. Sometimes a person could face, so let's say all of the time, a person would face the effects of low testosterone, not because of total testosterone, but because of the actual amount of free testosterone.
Right.
Now, if total testosterone is really low or towards the bottom end, obviously 2% of that is also low. But what if the testosterone is towards the top end or normal? But instead of 2% of total testosterone, only 0.5% of total testosterone is left as free testosterone.
Right.
Maybe due to a higher expression of sex hormone binding globulin.
Right.
And if that is the case, then despite having a normal testosterone level, and for me, normal testosterone is in the top quarter of the range.
Right.
Not the mid and not the bottom quarter.
Right.
Okay, and in fact, let's assume somebody has a total testosterone level of 350. I'd still consider that person to be low in testosterone.
Right.
Just like you would consider a person who's got 35% in his exams and he's passed.
Right.
But you still consider him to be a poor student, though he's passed. So similarly, we must understand that when you have such a wide range,
Right.
then you better be towards the
Higher end.
top quarter rather than the bottom quarter.
Right.
And again, even if you are at the top quarter, that's when you need to check whether you are at that reasonable 2% of free testosterone or not. Or are you binding up too much testosterone and thus creating a problem?
Right.
So now the problems are not associated only for people who want to work out and improve performance.
Right.
And finally, what is performance? Are you going to measure performance of a human being purely on his bench press, squat and deadlift or the Olympic lifts? Or are you going to measure his performance purely about, the CrossFit circuits that he does?
Right.
That's not the only performance in day-to-day life.
Right.
There's obviously something that helps us procreate and helps us further our species. So sexual function, extremely important.
Right.
Regular vigor and vitality that comes from testosterone.
Yes.
That matters a lot. Body composition. You may not work out, but you don't want a body that's lower in testosterone and higher in estrogen.
Right.
Though mind you, estrogen is extremely important to a male. It's not like it's not important. But then when the ratios go out of whack,
Right.
there's the male body doesn't really produce estrogen. So it actually converts testosterone to estrogen through an enzyme called as aromatase enzyme.
Yes. Right.
So maybe a higher expression of the aromatase enzyme may cause a lot of testosterone, more than what is required to convert to estrogen.
Right.
All of these are going to affect overall body composition. Now, body composition has to be understood as everything in the body, including the fluids. But from a fitness standpoint, when we talk about body composition, we're talking about a two-compartment model. We just talk about the muscles and fat.
Right.
Right? And in that two-compartment model, obviously, when the ratio of muscle reduces, and yes, hypertrophy, every person who hits the gym wants to increase his muscle.
Right.
But even if a person doesn't go to a gym, that person should not be suffering unnecessarily degenerative atrophy.
Right.
So, because the person is at a very low testosterone level, that person could basically be losing muscle at a rate that his age should not be losing muscle at.
Right.
And it doesn't really matter whether you are going to work out or not going to work out.
Right.
You want your testosterone in the top quarter. What Andropique promises and claims, and what has been seen in clinical research, thus the claims have turned out to be true, and what we've seen by recommending it to people, it has basically worked the way a testosterone booster should.
Right.
A testosterone booster actually optimizes your sex hormone levels within physiological parameters. So exactly what it basically creates the ideal environment.
Right.
It sees to it that your endocrine system is functioning properly, that your hypothalamo-pituitary testicular axis is functioning properly.
Right.
That's the axis that the body uses
to produce
to give the right messages finally to the testes to produce testosterone.
Right.
So all of these things keeps a person a male, virile, and sexually active and vital.
Yes.
With vitality and energy.
Right.
Everything that you would focus with being an ideal man.
Right.
You don't need to win the Olympics to be an ideal man.
Right.
It's what we're talking in the parameters of normalcy. Now, obviously, all of these parameters will be affected if the person has got low testosterone, including clinical depression.
Yes. Right.
Right?
So what I'm hearing, Kaizzad, is you're saying that testosterone, maintaining good levels of testosterone is independent of whether you're working out or not. Because every male should have optimal levels of testosterone for body functions in general.
I'll tell you where the connect comes in with the workouts.
Right.
So a person who's not working out, generally, if he is affected with low testosterone, his normal malaise that he feels or the lack of vitality that he feels, he ends up purely blaming it on a sedentary lifestyle and the fact that he doesn't work out.
Right.
So if he's got a bad body composition, he will probably, blame it on the fact that he doesn't
When working out.
And that's not exactly how it should be.
Right. Right.
That should be independent of whether you work out or not. The reason why so many people connected to workouts is because of the non-responding kind. That means that if you were to then embark on a fitness regime
Right.
that includes intensive workouts, now once you're putting in the hard work and you're not seeing the body respond the way it should, or you're the classic guy who keeps on talking about the fact that I work out harder than this guy and I'm seeing him change and I'm not seeing myself change.
Right.
Constantly questioning that I'm taking my supplements and I'm taking care of my protein intake through whey protein supplements. I'm taking care of my entire diet.
Right.
And I sleep well. I'm disciplined in my entire approach. But why the hell am I not getting results? I'm so regular and consistent with my workouts.
So this is the guy who is not, he's actually hitting it really hard at the gym, but he's not getting the results in spite of having everything going through.
That's because his sex hormonal balance is not proper.
Right.
And hence, obviously, is not ideal. And hence, obviously, he's going to be frustrated with his results. People don't understand that we are ruled by our hormones.
Right.
That nutrition and exercise can only give you the benefit that they're supposed to give you if your hormonal environment is ideal.
Right.
And if the hormonal environment is affected, then you're bound to see frustration in your workouts.
Right. I think you give a good analogy of when you're constructing a building and you have the necessary raw materials but you don't have the government permissions.
Exactly.
Right?
So you just can't start the work.
So the hormones are essentially like the government permissions that you
just
need.
creating the environment that everything is right now for. And consequently, we give another example that creating the hormonal environment is not going to just suddenly start making you sprout muscles, including if you were to take exogenous testosterone in the form of synthetic derivatives of the male hormone testosterone, where we're getting into the domain of anabolic androgenic steroids, drugs, the pharmaceutical drugs. Even if you were to take that, it would require the stimulus of exercise, and it would require the right nutrition, because then you would be in that situation where you've got the permissions, you've got everything, and then you don't have the bricks and mortar.
Yes, correct.
For the job done.
Right. So summing up the question in terms of all the people who are asking whether if I don't work out, can I use Andropique? I guess what I'm hearing is that in any case, irrespective of whether you're working out, having a good hormonal profile is essential, absolutely essential.
In fact, if I would go so far as to say that if a person has a really bad testosterone to estrogen ratio, if his testosterone levels are really low, or if his free testosterone is really low, despite having a higher overall total testosterone, then I would suggest that he gets onto an efficacious product like Andropique, and actually take about probably around 4 weeks at least on the product, normalize his hormonal balance, and then embark
on the process.
Maybe the guy has not worked out for 21 years of his life. There's no harm in waiting for another 4 weeks.
Yes.
Get your hormonal environment correct and then start working out.
Fantastic.
That would be something that would save him of a little bit of initial frustration. His body will respond at a normal rate. Remember, non-responders are not responding at a normal rate. They're responding at a subnormal rate. So what we're trying to tell you is that let the body respond the way it should. You should be getting the rewards of your efforts and not getting frustrated.
Yes.
Now, we understood that 300 to 1000 could be a range. Don't expect to take Andropique at whatever doses you want to. Even if you swallow the whole bloody bottle in one go, you're not going to be at 1500 and 2000.
Exactly.
That's not how it works.
It's over a period of time. You have to build it.
Over a period of time, but even over a period of time, once you're at the top end, that's where you will hover. And that's an ideal place to be.
Yes. And you'll never go beyond the range because your body will always maintain that.
Again, to say you will never go beyond the range, we don't. There are people who might. So it's not that. It is not at all harmful to be at 1200 and 1300. And if you say, but then what if it's 10,000? It's not going to get to 10,000. So let's not even go there. I mean, let's not even mention that. And nobody's seen what's going to happen if your endogenous testosterone goes to 10,000. There's no reference point. There is nobody to check exactly what happens at
10,000. Correct. Fantastic. Okay, that's fantastic. Then.
So I guess I've covered the fact that whether you work out or you don't work out, if your sex hormone balance is affected, your testosterone levels are low or your free testosterone levels are low, and you find that out through a test.
Yes.
Immediately then start off on a safe protocol of Andropique and normalize it.
Right.
If you're planning to start your workouts and you find through a test that you're having low testosterone levels, again, my advice, suggestion, not something that they need to follow. They can start their workouts off concomitantly.
Right.
But they would save themselves a lot of frustration if they would start off for 4 weeks and then afterwards start their workouts.
Okay. Fantastic.